Sailor Boy with Dewey. A gentle, slow, and immersive telling. Read aloud. This is the story of a sailor boy with Dewey, or Afloat in the Philippines. The title is a promise of a long voyage. Close your eyes and settle in. Let your breath slow. Imagine a wide, dark ocean, a schooner's deck beneath your feet, and the hush of night between the waves. We begin at sea. Two boys, young and eager, standing on the quarterdeck of a three-masted schooner called the Dart. Thunder runs along the line of the horizon, and the sky to the southeast swells with heavy, rolling clouds. The air feels thick and warm. You can hear the sea breathe, a slow, wet inhale and exhale, lifting and falling. One of the boys, Oliver Raymond, is 16, tall, steady, with the quiet courage of a boy who's been given trust and responsibility. Beside him is Dan Holbrook, his chum, quick, confident, a friend to rely on when nights are long and storms are coming. They look out together, shoulders almost touching, and say in low voices what the waves make them feel. That a storm is on its way. On board is a captain named Kenny. He is a man whose face is too rough and whose temper is too quick. Often he drinks, and the salt of the sea does not wash some kinds of hardness away. Below decks are other crewmen, the steady mate Tom Dawson, the carpenter Quigley, the cook Sid, a few Irishmen, Swedes, and other sailors who know the tricks of the wind and the danger of a rope that parts. As the clouds gather, the wind starts to argue with the sails. It pushes higher and angrier, whispering to the ropes until they creak and strain. The boys worry for the captain, who is not where he should be. When the captain appears, he is a storm all of his own, stumbling, a pistol in his hand. The tension blooms, words about responsibility, threats, a shove that sends the young Oliver to his feet to defend himself. The night grows darker. The sea shows its teeth. Now picture the first big flash of lightning, quick and white, revealing a other ship close by, a Chinese junk with a broken bowsprit and a jagged hole driven into her side. Something invisible and awful snaps. Two vessels collide in black weather. Wood splinters dance like little knives in the storm's breath. The schooner groans and rolls, a heavy, frightened animal. Men spring to the pumps. Waves climb, the deck careens, and there is shouts. The cry of men who are making a desperate attempt to work against the leak where the sea is pouring in. Imagine the cold wet of the open sea, the taste of salt on your lips, the weight of the wind. Feel the small boat lowering away from the side of the failing schooner when the decision comes to abandon ship. Picture Dan and Oliver, breathless and drenched, and each putting on the life preserver and cramming into that tiny boat with others, 4 small craft for 20 souls. The storm is still alive, as if it will not let them go without one more cry. In the dark, in the confusion, they are separated. The boat that holds Dan is different from the boat that holds Oliver. Boats overturn. The oars slip. Lightning paints the waves in quick, awful pictures. Oliver watches the hull of the Dart tilt one way and then another, and then they almost cannot tell where the wreck lies. They ride and they bail, and in the daylight after the storm, they find themselves afloat on a vast green sheet of ocean with a little keg of biscuits and a small cask of water between them. Exhaustion arrives like a forgiving hand. Sleep comes in short, precious pockets. But the sea is not done with them. A tide of worry, of hunger, of uncertainty settles down. When finally land is seen, the curve of a low, green shore, palms rimmed by a ring of white surf. Relief fills them like sunlight. They beach on a pear-shaped inlet, palms standing like tall, patient sentries. The air is calm, warm, sweet with the smell of flowers and the salt. They find the Dart high and dry farther up, shield and beached as if the ocean itself had laid her gently on the sand and said, "Too early, rest." But as they approach, other shapes move, natives, taggles, dark figures, lithe and silent. There is a bustle of fear and ownership. The men who found this wreck first claim it. It is a place of flags and claims and misunderstandings. Take a moment and breathe in slow rhythms. In for 4, hold for a second, out for 5. You are on a quiet stretch of sand now. The trouble, the violence, they are distant and softening into memory like storm clouds moving past you. The story moves gently on. Soon Tom Dawson's small boat comes in, and with it a sorrow. The name of Dan Holbrook is called in the voices of those on shore. For a time, it seems that Dan is lost to the deep. Later, surprise and joy. Dan arrives, saved by chance or by a stranger's hand, and holds Oliver close as if reconfirming the world. Islands stir with strange, ancient rhythms. There are different tongues and many suns. The air is richly scented banana flower, citrus, distant spices. And yet, there is a thread of danger, a hint of a world that is not at peace. On the beach Dart, life reknits itself into a new order. They find other survivors, some homes to shelter them, a fire to warm their chilled bones. They gather shellfish and pick fruit. The land is a study in lushness, palm fronds, mahogany and ebony trees, vines that hang like the scarves of some patient god. The sunlight comes in gold, and the shade is deep and cool. The Tagal village of Bamwoga is a cluster of bamboo huts bordered by a narrow lane that runs to the sea. The small wooden houses are homes built from what the island gives. At night, the village is lit by open flame, and the sky above is a scatter of stars so bright they might be a net the gods have thrown across the night. Yet the narrative is layered. The Tagal people themselves, proud, fierce, are in a long and tangled struggle with the Spanish authorities, who hold sway in Manila and claim these islands. The story expands gently. There are political winds. There is talk of a leader named General Aguinaldo. There are the strange meetings of different cultures on these islands: Chinese merchants, Spanish soldiers, quiet Malay families, and the innumerable small lives that go on in the shade. Oliver and Dan find, with Tom Dawson, other sailors, and a patchwork of companionship. The losses are real. Some friends do not survive. There are moments of quiet so intense you feel the ocean's entire hush. The fishermen repairing nets, the slow turning of a pot over a small flame, two boys passing a single half peel of banana between them like a shared treasure. There are moments of violent eruption, of course, sudden and roaring. But mostly, the tale takes the steady path of men learning to hold to one another in an unfamiliar place. Imagine a day when Oliver climbs a hill and looks out across the valley. Up there, the air is clean, and he sees smoke as if a distant battle is taking place. The horizon is a watercolor of green mountains and pale sky. Guns speak from far away, and he can hear the rumble of musket and cannon like thunder. The world of war presses upon the place like the ocean presses upon land. Between the islands and the sea, there is the presence of fleets. The United States Asiatic Squadron waits under Commodore George Dewey's command. The Spanish fleet under Admiral Montojo waits also. Both fleets are like angered weather systems, poised to strike. Soon the story widens further. The boys travel to Manila under the careful daring of small acts of kindness. They meet Harry Longley, a clerk who guards the offices of their firm, Raymond, Holbrook, and Smith. Manila is a city of narrow streets and long wharves, a weave of Spanish homes and Chinese shops, of Tagal alleys, and the broad, old Pasig River that cuts through the town. There are marks of the colonial past here, stately government buildings, the old town, and the business quarter with its packed shops. The streets are crowded with soldiers, and there is an atmosphere of waiting, tense, and small as a held breath. Rumors gather like rain. There will be a fight at the bay. Everything now moves toward the central event you've perhaps heard of in history. The clash in Manila Bay. The squadron steams out under moonlight, and the air tastes now like the night before a big beginning. Picture the watches of the men, the small steel roar of engines, the ships gliding along. On the morning the squall of engagement breaks, the fleet moves with the clarity of a well-practiced decision. The sea sees them, the land sees them. At dawn, there are silhouettes on the horizon. The Spanish line emerges, and the ships exchange fire. Brass and steel speak. The water boils with the impact of shot. Commodore Dewey's fleet is steady, clear-eyed. The Spanish vessels, brave in their way, burn and sink like paper flung into a bonfire. The air becomes full of smoke and heat. From the deck of the Boston, where Oliver and Dan find themselves, the roar is elemental. Gunpowder and the smell of hot iron move through everything. Sailors are motion and muscle and quick will. They care for the wounded, and between the heavy business of loading and firing, they tell the small jokes that are the breath between heartbeats. The battle, fierce as it is, has a dignity to it, a sense of order in chaos. After the fleet's triumph, gentle compassion shades the retelling. The sailors, who have seen the wreckage and the wounded, step forward to help the defeated. The Spanish vessels are burned, and the shore holds the prints of a fear. On the little beaches, the survivors of the enemy, young men, frightened sailors, come stumbling and ask for mercy. They are given it. You hear in the way the Americans treat them a humbler message. After all, the sea has no loyalty. It takes what it takes. Listen now to soft scenes. The men ashore, walking through a field of palms, the sun now low and soft, the breeze a cool hand. There is a quiet that falls after the big noise. In churches used as barracks, the men sleep with the smell of salt on their clothes. The landscape is full rice fields, low hills, a watercourse charting the land's slow heart. Our two boys, driven by curiosity and loyalty, decide to re-enter Manila to learn what happened to their friends and the firm's papers. They move with caution, for this city is now watched by soldiers, and suspicion is a ready blade. At the office, the clerk Harry Longley holds vigil and defends his safe with the care of a man defending a sacred thing. There is a night when thieves come to take the office's treasure. The boys act bravely. A fight breaks out. Spanish men with daggers appear. The clash is sudden and bright, and the quiet that follows is thick with urgency. There is a night with hand-to-hand struggle, fierce but quick, and it ends with both danger and victory. The clerks and the sailors bind wounds and share what food they have. The office is battered but not conquered. 2 or 3 would-be robbers lie wounded outside. Another of the small town's fights is ended, and the hospital work begins. The men whisper plans. The city waits. The feeling is of a long watch that may give way to morning at any second. In another hour, the story turns away from violence to the small mercies of life. Oliver and Dan find a dying old man beneath a tiny hut one night on the road. Gaston Brown, who asks them to deliver a packet to his son Watt. He dies with a wide generosity in his last breath, and the packet becomes a trust Oliver takes into his care. It becomes part of the long, winding rope of the tale, a promise that will lead to more than the boys can imagine. Later, far north along the shore, the boys find the Dart again. It lies beached and quiet, as if folded into a memory. Watt Brown, the rugged second mate, is on board, brave, practical, ready to defend the ship. He and the boys mark the horizon with a feeling of small, bitter triumph. But pirates arrive in a small junk. Their colors, their faces, the quick glance of a man ready to do wrong. Captain Kenny is among them, desperate, duplicitous, ready to sell and betray his own. The small boat tries to come in with flags of truce, but their intent is sharp as a spear. A howitzer is readied on the deck, and long musket fire paints the surf. The encounter is tense as a held breath. The junk and the small boats come forward. Men tumble over the rail. The boarders come. The howitzer roars. The small craft return to shore. Close combat flares. The deck becomes a theater of smoke and a mess of knives. Watt Brown is struck, wounded gravely. He is a man of warm laugh and steady hands, and his fall presses upon Oliver like a cruel weight. In the hush after the fight, the boys and their friends make small repairs. They search suddenly with a fierce hope for the missing belt, Oliver's money, and the company documents that might save a business. Under the rumple of blankets and a trunk, they find the money and the papers at last. A great relief fills them like fresh air rising after long descent. With the documents again safe, there is a new, rock-steady determination in Oliver. The law and truth have been restored. The firm's trust is again in hand. Yet the price of victory is heavy. Watt Brown dies with dignity and slow courage. The men bury him on the shore with a simple wooden cross. The grief is quiet and sacred. In the hush, the little flag flutters above the dart, and the sea hears the graves, whispers. There is a morning when the sounds across the bay are different. Commodore Dewey and his men stand watchful and certain. The Navy moves, the harbor clears, and Manila changes. The United States flag flies where there once was a Spanish one. England's east and trade do not pull the city's course. The future has shifted like sand shifted under a tide. Raymond, Holbrook, and Smith is restored. Its ledger will be balanced. The papers will do their quiet work. The hearts that were raw with worry find balm in the slow repetition of repair and the small business of life. Oliver returns to San Francisco not long after, carrying memories like small, smooth stones in his pocket. The feel of the deck in the storm, the sound of a dying mate's voice, the sudden, fierce brightness of cannon fire, the hush of a bay after a battle. He carries also deeds, rescued documents, the weight of responsibility that a 16-year-old could never have asked for, and yet which he bore. Dan and Oliver remain quick friends, bound by salt and danger, and the kind of loyalty that does not need much speech. In the end, the sea is always the sea, vast, impartial, relentless, and comforting. It takes and gives back, and the men who live upon it learn to listen. The story closes with a soft, sustained breath. There are other adventures waiting, stories of volcanoes and islands and strange maps. Yet for this hour, the tale rests. If you have lingered here this long, you have shared the voyage. Let the memory of each scene, the hush of the lighthouse at Corregidor, the hot glare of Manila's sun, the rustle of palm fronds, and the slow, patient breathing of the ocean, lull you further toward sleep. Picture the small cross marking Watt Brown's grave on the shore, the gentle flicker of the hairline of surf at its feet. Hold in your hand the weight of that recovered packet, the proof of rightness set back into place. Think of the kindness that came in the form of strangers. An officer's steam launch stopped for a downed Marine, a clerk who saved the firm's money, a cook named Sid with a brave, faithful heart. As your breathing slows, let the final image be quiet. The schooner beached and peaceful beneath a soft, starlit sky, the sea making its small, patient sound, the world around it alive with hidden things, but safe, for now, under the quiet watch of a nameless night. Dream of gentle waves, of friends returned safely to the long dock, of letters delivered and duties done. Let your chest sink deeper. Let your chin fall toward your chest. The story has been long, a journey across storms and into kindness and home. Sleep now, like the slow tide coming and going until morning arrives. Good night,